So after a wild card race of this weekend at Talladega Super Speedway, it is now the cutoff for the second round in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. After this Sunday, another 4 will be eliminated and 8 will move on. As for the Truck Series, we just had our first elimination race, so now 6 drivers are moving on to the next round as we are getting set to preview Talladega and also previewing Kansas as well. His name is Chris, my name is Corey, and welcome to the C&J Speedway Review. And welcome back, everybody, to the C&J Speedway Review. My name is Corey Huffnagel, and we are going to be recapping Talladega Super Speedway this weekend with the Camping World Truck Series and the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series this weekend on what was a exciting and probably one of the most, competition wildcard race of this weekend. But to kick this all off, I really want to start this off with a little something that I had in mind this morning, and this was probably one thing I was kind of thinking about. So
you know what's fun, Corey? You know what's fun? Hey, copyright.
But yeah, folks,
you can't do that. It's copyright.
Right.
On the Loki and Jabroni show, we've learned that over the last 170 plus episodes, you cannot do that because bands like Skinner, bands like Europe are going to come after us. They're going to kick our butts. And by the way, you stole the soft open, but that's okay because did it. You did it with such a flair. Continue, my friend.
Right. All right. So that was one thing that I had in mind. So that was, all I could just say is when you think about Talladega, you got to think about Leonard Skinner to Sweet Home Alabama. Not to do anything wrong with those guys, but honestly, that has to be my all-time favorite Leonard Skinner song, and probably my number one favorite song of all time. But let's go to the hotline now, and always a pleasure to chat with. His name is Chris. So how are we doing tonight?
Corey, I can't tell you how excited I am. Talladega is wrought with controversy, crashes, and much like life is wrought with controversy and crashes, this weekend is no different. But before we even start talking about Talladega, I'm going to throw an early shout out to my man Roger Parsons. I worked with him for a couple of years at a particular factory where we x-rayed airplane parts on FTS. If you want to know what FTS means, message the C&J Speedway Review, because I will not say it out loud to you folks because we are a family show. He was known as Dr. Dilligaff. If you want to know what Dilligaff means, message the C&J Speedway Review show. I will tell you what Dilligaff means. It's an acronym. But Roger, thank you for all your support. I can't wait to see you on Monday, and we're gonna watch. He's gonna actually watch the Kansas race with me on Monday as I do prep work, because I'm not sure I'm going to make the race Sunday, but because we record on Wednesday for you fine folks, I'm going to watch the race on Monday. But Corey, what a fantastic weekend. We have a surprise winner on the Truck Series. We have only a surprise winner on the Cup Series, but a guy that we have been trumpeting so hard all season long. And we have big news out of the 42 camp. So if you want to take us into the news, let's go to it.
All right, so apparently the 42 car of Kyle Larson received an L1 penalty just today. Now, this is what the violation was. So the team was violated of Section 10.9.9.d of the NASCAR rulebook, which covers the damaged vehicle policy and mechanical repair. The rule states that regardless of how damage to the car occurs, the team is only permitted to reattach the original body parts of the car to their original locations with fasteners and or tape only, which is the 200-mile-an-hour tape. The 42 team reattached parts via metal tabs following the on-track incident. So pretty much that is a no-no, which NASCAR banned back in February. So as a result, NASCAR penalized the 42 team 10 points. So now Larson goes from 26 points behind the cutoff to now 36 points behind the cutoff. So Larson's in a must-win situation mode coming Sunday.
Before we went hot, just so these people know, we do a little bit of pre-production work, and what I said to you was there's a lot of scenarios, and I didn't do the math this time, that Larson can sneak his way in. When you look at the difference between Chase Elliott and eighth, who was locked in, so let's move him along. Let's move Martin Truex down. He's 30.83, and I know we're jumping ahead of ourselves, but there's a 40-something point difference between Kyle Larson and Martin Truex Jr. Is it a must-win situation? Like you said, in my opinion, yes, it is. For Kyle Larson, Kansas is everything, and he does great on those kind of tracks. But there's also a lot of room to wiggle when you look at some of the guys who are in this championship 8 going forward that can fall out. Clint Boyer, 30.86. Martin Truex, 30.83. Brad Keselowski, underneath the cutoff line. Ryan Blaney, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. Underneath the cutoff line. Kyle Larson can sneak in with a second place finish if 3 or 4 of the guys ahead of him don't have a fantastic race. And listeners, watchers, I apologize. I didn't do the math like I did last time. But, hey, for what it's worth, Kyle Larson has a chance without winning. But in my opinion, he has to be either 2 or 3 to get in.
Right. And I just look at Larson this year, comparing to last year when he won 4 races, I just think, they have been running pretty decent, but then yet again, like they just haven't, been the team to look out for this season. And I just look at it, and also my opinion, even if Kyle Larson does finish second in the race on Sunday, it's still not going to be enough to have him advance and so forth. I mean, like you said earlier, it's going to take everybody else to have problems, in order for him to sneak in. But now, could he do it? Maybe, but I just think it's doubtful at this point.
Well, you have to look at the people ahead of him. Chase Elliott has a win.
Yeah.
So he's automatically bumped up. Keselowski in this round does not. Ryan Blaney in this round does not. So there's only so much wiggle room. And when you consider Clint Boyer is ahead of him by 45 points, Clint Boyer's basically locked. So he has to worry about Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. Brad Keselowski, Ryan Blaney.
Right.
And with a little help from Martin Truex Jr. falling out, there's just a lot that has to happen. A second place finish could do well for Kyle Larson, but when you consider last year, like you said, he had 4 wins.
Yeah.
And Truex had 5 last year. Am I right?
I think 7 wins.
Was it 7?
Yeah, last year I think it was 7.
Holy hell. Okay. So again, now you're looking at Martin Truex. Again, we'll go to the points later, but Martin Truex and Kyle Larson, the class of the field last year, right now in 7th and 11th, not a great look. However, when you consider that Martin Truex has playoff points, 4 wins this year, Kyle Larson has no wins and not a whole lot of playoff points, there's not that big a window for Kyle Larson. So I am going to go with you, Corey, and say this is a must-win situation for Kyle Larson. As much as I say, mathematically, second can get him a sneak-in spot, a couple guys ahead of him.
Exactly.
Okay. Is that all the news we have to cover?
Well, let's see. One little small note. So I guess with Aric Almirola winning the race on Sunday, he did have a little bit of a problem himself, but not really a big one. But so I guess the 10-4 team was found one lug nut not properly installed. So as a result, crew chief John Klossmeyer has been fined $10,000.
Okay, well, you take some, you win some, you lose some. It's not like Chad Knaus, who gets suspended for doing a whole bunch of crooked stuff on a race car. I'm not trying to pick on you, Jimmy Johnson fans. All I'm saying is Almirola's crew chief did what he had to do. You got this problem, whatever. I'm done.
Right.
Let's just revel in Almirola's victory. No other news. This is a
No,
slow week for NASCAR news. It's kind of scary,
right.
but we're going to get more as we go along. But the trucks were hot this weekend at Talladega. And Corey, tell us what we saw. Tell me what you saw.
All right, so the Camping World Truck Series was racing at Talladega this past Saturday for the Freight Auctions 250, which was won by none other than Timothy Peters himself. So watching this race on Saturday, I mean, yeah, there were some parts where it was exciting, and then of course you had the 10 truck crash, which claimed a lot of drivers, which of course also last year's winner Parker Kligerman, but also playoff drivers like Johnny Sauter, Matt Crafton, Ben Rhodes. Let's see, and then yeah, so basically I think three playoff drivers were caught in the wreck, but going to the final laps of the race, and I think the one thing that was kind of exciting was Noah Gragson was leading in the closing laps, and you could just tell that once it's like 10 laps to go or 5 laps to go, then then you have to go for it and so forth. So on the last lap, Gregson tried to do what he did to block, and here comes Timothy Peters on the outside. So immediately, the 18 truck sees that pack coming, so he tries to block coming on the outside, but little does he not know that he gets into the left rear quarter panel of the 25 truck, and then next thing you know, Gregson ends up spinning, and then he gets two other trucks involved, whatever, and so forth. But but if you look at it, had that would have been lap 2 of the race, it would have been different. But if it's on the last lap, you got to do what you got to do, bringing it back with the trophy or the steering wheel or whatever. But and do I kind of blame Noah Gragson? No, I mean I don't think he was blocking or anything, but he did what he had to do and he tried to win the race, but he just couldn't capitalize it.
Absolutely. And when you go from a position where you have a chance to win the race to a finish of 13th, especially at Talladega, where 1 second, think about this, guys. When you're at Michigan, at Daytona, or anywhere else, not so much Daytona, we'll go to Kansas because we're going to Kansas this week. 1 second is the difference between first and 13th.
Right.
Okay, so there were a lot of times during the truck race and the cup race, which we'll cover in just a few minutes, where the difference between 13th and you look up at the crawler and you see your favorite guy is in 13th, you're like, oh, you're only 1 second back. All you need to do is catch a really good draft, get a really good run, find your line, and you can be in the top 5. But when you get involved in something like this and you go from second to 13th, it's a day ender for Noah Gragson. But at the same time, it felt great for Timothy Peters because he he's one of these kids that I talk about statement races all the time. Timothy Peters is going to be somebody going forward in the truck series.
Yeah, I think looking back on it, I don't think he's done racing just yet. And I kind of look at it and I say to myself, all right, something tells me I think he's going to get a full-time ride sometime soon. And I hope he can be back in the truck series next year, depending on what team he drives for.
Absolutely. So I'm going to break down the running order. If you're all done describing what you saw during the truck
Yep.
race, I didn't see anything more than you did. I thought it was a fantastic race all the way around.
Yeah.
All right, so Timothy Peters, as we said, came home in first. Myatt Snyder second. David Gilliland third. Justin Haley fourth. Wendell Chavot is in fifth. I always say his name wrong, so I wanted to make it a point to say Wendell Chavot finished fifth. Stuart Friesen sixth. Jordan Anderson seventh. Brian, I'm going to screw this up. I feel like Jimmy Wisman on Crime and Sports right now. Brian Dowsett?
Yeah.
Duzay? Whatever, finished eighth. Max Tullman ninth and Austin Hill 10th. Other notables, Jennifer Jo Cobb 11th, Austin Self 12th. Noah Gragson, we mentioned earlier, 13th. Ben Rhodes 16th, Brett Moffitt 17th, Grant Enfinger 19th, Todd Gilliland 20th, Johnny Sauter a disappointing 22nd, Spencer Gallagher 25th. There was a little shake and bake with him going on. I don't
Yeah.
know if we covered that. In 25th, Matt Crafton 26th, John Hunter Nemechek 27th, Parker Kligerman 28th, and Joe Nemechek finishes off our notables in 30th. I saw a little bit of a blurb online about what happened with Spencer Gallagher. Would you like to comment on that? Because I didn't see anything other than the news story.
Well, I haven't heard anything interesting on Spencer Gallagher besides the fact that he was driving the 2 truck this past weekend at Talladega. And you just go through what this kid has been this year. I mean, he races full time in the Xfinity Series this season, wins at Talladega, thinks that, okay, he's in the playoffs, no brainer. And then come to find out a few days later, he's suspended for violating the NASCAR substance abuse policy. So now he does the road to recovery program, passes it, gets reinstated, gets back into the sport. Now, I still don't agree with the fact that NASCAR says that he's not eligible to run for the championship this year, but I do understand the fact that, it's not an injury related issue or a sick related issue. It was pretty much more than that. But I just look at Spencer Gallagher's future and I kind of thought, all right, so I would like to see him run in the Truck Series full time next year because we all know that Cody Coughlin, he's not going to be back next year for GMS Racing or pretty much in the next coming races and so forth. But even if Gallagher doesn't get that ride, I'd still think he could go back to Xfinity next year full time, back in the 23 car. And then, for the 2 truck, you might have one of the young up and comers coming up from like K&N or whatever it is and so forth. But you just look at Gallagher, and I'd probably say, like, before the weekend, I thought to myself, all right, what a better way, for Gallagher to win the race on Saturday after he won back in May in Xfinity after the whole thing that happened and so forth. But I just look at Gallagher and I say to myself, all right, he's going to be back full time next year, hopefully.
It would be nice to see that. It really would, because the kid went through so much. And maybe the Truck Series is where he needs to hone his craft. I know he had the win, Spencer Gallagher, pronouns, pal. Had the win on the Xfinity Series, but at the same time, we're talking about a kid who needs to remember his roots. The whole drug violation. I don't want to get too deep into the what's and the hows and the whys and the what fors, but he needs a remembrance of where he came from. So maybe a full-time truck ride should be in his future. Let him go for that championship. If he's top 4, move him back up full-time Xfinity. Let's go with that. But the best thing about this truck race is that the points were reset, and unfortunately, 2 of the people that Corey and myself thought were early favorites for this truck championship are gone. Ben Rhodes and Stuart Friesen. Sorry, guys, you're out. I'm going to go from 6 to 1 on the point gimmick, and then we'll go to the picks. Matt Crafton sits in 6th with 3,003 points. It's Justin Haley is in 5th with 3,014. Grant Enfinger is in 4th with 3,018. Noah Gragson is in 3rd with 3,025. Brett Moffitt is in 2nd with 30-27, and Johnny Sauter, once again, continuing to lead the points. Playoff points are so important with 30-42. Before we go to the picks, we have the 6. When is the cutoff race? And of those 6, who do you see as the 2 who drop off and don't go to the championship for?
All right, this one is a really tough one, but
yeah, I try not to make it easy on you because you're like the guru.
Well, I would have to say, I would have to say if I would have had to pick 2 right now, and this could subsequently change, within the next couple weeks, but I would have to say my 2 that would probably be dropped out would have to be Justin Haley and Matt Crafton.
Interesting, because I picked Enfinger and Crafton as the 2. The reason being is because Haley has 2 wins, Enfinger has 1, Matt Crafton has 0, but Matt Crafton is a former champion. But this year, as many times as I picked Matt Crafton, as many times as I said, experience is going to win this race, Matt Crafton has let me down. And we're going to find out just how much he let me down when we go to the picks. But my championship 4 right now are Sauter, Moffitt, Gregson, Haley. Those are my 4.
Yeah, my four. I mean, it was going to be Stuart Friesen there, but since he's out, but mine is definitely going to have to be Johnny Sauter, Gregson, Enfinger, and possibly Haley. The way it looks, is it?
Not even Moffitt?
Well, I kind of look at him and I kind of say, and I kind of ask myself, all right, he's won some big races this year. He won in a photo finish in Michigan. He won by holding off Noah Gragson at Iowa. And then, of course, he ends up winning in Atlanta, which, caught me by surprise, whatever. But I would have to say, if Brett Moffitt is going to be a serious title contender going for the championship, I really think he should start, driving a lot better. I think he should start leading laps, get that win, so that you can advance to Homestead, whatever. I mean, Las Vegas, he had a really good shot to win it if he hadn't run out of fuel and so forth. And then, of course, Talladega was almost a near disaster for him because he ended up cutting a right front tire, which I didn't think he was going to finish the race at all. But you just look at him, 4 wins. I mean, it's not too bad. I mean, it's probably the best out of his career. But I would have to say that if he wants to be a serious title contender, he's got to show me more.
Look, there's one thing, and I'm not going to pick on anybody, Patrick, but I'm going to pick on somebody. Liars can figure, but figures don't lie. Other than Johnny Sauter, there's no other winning driver that has close to what Johnny Sauter has than Brett Moffitt. Johnny Sauter is sitting with 5 wins. Brett Moffitt has 4. I don't see Brett Moffitt falling out of this round of 6, moving up. He's going to move on to the round of 4 for the championship. That's my opinion. Liars can figure, but figures don't lie. If you want to go to the baseball terminology, yes, there are a lot of teams that have won a lot of championships in the last 20 years. But don't discount the last 80, because those are the ones that are going to come up and bite you in the butt when you least expect it. Much like the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Milwaukee Brewers. And maybe in this case, Brett Moffitt is going to be that guy who surprises a whole lot of people with 4 wins under his belt. And when we go to the next truck race, he's going to be the guy that surprises everybody and moves on to the next round.
I would definitely agree so. I mean, I think probably Moffitt's best shot to win the race would have to come on a 1.5 miles, but I would have to say Texas.
Where's the I know you got 17 computers there. So tell me where the next truck race is. I know it's not this weekend, but I think it's the weekend after.
Yeah.
Where is the next truck race?
Martinsville.
Which is in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Okay, so a mile, it's a paper clip, it's a flat track. I can't remember what the trucks did at Martinsville, if they ran at Martinsville earlier. Again, I don't have the big notebook in front of me, but I just think that if Brett Moffitt wants it that bad, he's going to make it happen. He's sitting pretty. He's second in points. He is, let me look, he's 24 points, which doesn't sound that great, but when you consider that the truck race often has only 32 competitors, he's sitting pretty. He basically has to finish 26 or better,
right,
to make his way in. Brett Moffitt's going to make that championship 4. That's my opinion. I'm sticking to it. I'm Chris Burns, and I approve this message.
There you go.
But while we're on the subject of life sucking, because we said it at the beginning of the show, let's talk about how much life sucks for me. We go to the picks. Johnny Sauter was Corey's lock. He finished 22nd, not the best finish ever. But he picked Justin Haley as his sleeper. He finished 4th. That's a finish of 26. You divide that by 2. Corey, your finish was 13. I picked Brett Moffitt as my lock. He finished 16th. I picked Matt Crafton as my sleeper. He finished 26th. You divide that by 2. I got a finish of 22. Corey, you are the Truck Series champion of the world this week.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And having said that, there was a discussion I had with somebody at work in regard to NASCAR. They are a NASCAR fan. I'm not going to say their name. They asked that I didn't say their name. But he said that he didn't consider the Truck Series real racing because, and again, I'm not a NASCAR wrencher. I'm not in the teams. I'm not in the garages. He thinks that the NASCAR Truck Series vehicles are heavier on the low end, on the back end. So they're easier to stick to the ground. There's a lot more when he talks about air and weight distribution. He just doesn't like the Truck Series. How do you respond to that?
Well, all I can just say is, when you think about the Truck Series, I mean, you think about guys that have run that series, and then yet again that were pretty much the face of the series over the years. I'm talking guys like Ron Hornaday and Jack Sprague and Mike Skinner and Todd Bodine and Ted Musgrave. Heck, there was even a time where it used to be a veteran series, where you had guys that that came down from the Cup Series that would basically just finish their career in the Truck Series. And what I noticed, I would say 5 years ago, was a new chapter of all these young drivers that are coming in. And, some of these guys, have won championships that have already went to, the Xfinity Series and now the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. You got guys like Erik Jones, who won a championship, who's now in the Cup Series. You have Christopher Bell, who won a championship, who's now in the Xfinity Series. I mean, you have, let's see, you got mostly anybody, that's won championships that have either moved on or retired and everything and so forth. But the way I think about, the Truck Series, and the one thing that I really want them to adjust and I really want them to do a little bit of a fix would be the scheduling. Because there was a time where, the Truck Series would run 25 races a year, where, they'd run at races like Richmond and South Boston and Memphis. There was one time they ran at North Wilkesboro. Then they also ran on the road course, which, they ran at Sonoma, Watkins Glen, the road course in Canada, which is out in Topeka, the Heartland. And then, of course, Watkins Glen, they ran there for a long time. And of course, they also ran on the 2 miles at Michigan and California and everything else and so forth. But I would have to say that, I think the Truck Series should go back to these racetracks that they haven't been to in a long time. I mean, they should go back to California. They should go back to Richmond. They should go back to New Hampshire, which I'm kind of disappointed that, NASCAR took the truck race off the New Hampshire schedule and had to put it for a second Las Vegas race, which I still kind of disagree on as well. And then there's also the possibility of, NASCAR, the Truck Series going back to O'Reilly Raceway Park, and then, of course, the Truck Series going back to Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, which I think to myself, all right, I think that should be a really good idea because, the Truck Series, in my opinion, is meant to racing on the short tracks, the 1 miles. I mean, super speedways, I will give it, credit. And, of course, the 1.5 miles, I do give them credit on that and so forth. But not only you had, Ron Hornaday that dominated the Truck Series for a number of years. Now you talk about a guy, Kyle Busch, who tied Ron Hornaday's all-time wins record back in July at Pocono. And the way you look at it, like I said before, Kyle Busch is going to be breaking a lot of records before the season's out. But the future for the Truck Series, as I see it, we're going to see a lot of these young guys come in a lot more, and then we're going to see the veteran guys leaving out. Because if you look at it, the only veteran guys that you have in the Truck Series right now would have to be Matt Crafton and Johnny Sauter, and then pretty much Timothy Peters, who only runs on a part-time basis. So that's the way I see it at this point.
All right, well, going back to the finishing order, give me your happy and give me your sad from the truck race.
All right, so first my sad, I'm definitely going to have to go with Stuart Friesen because...
Whoa! Timeout, offsides, clipping. A 6th place finish is your sad?
But just remember, he got eliminated from the next round.
I get it. Okay.
But and I really wanted to see that 52 truck move on. I mean, of course, Friesen didn't have the best truck all day. I mean, they were having a little bit of motor problems, so they weren't like at the front most of the time. I mean, they were in the top 10, but then yet again, like they just weren't a capable truck of winning uh, the way I see it. But my happy, I'm gonna have to go. I'm definitely gonna have to go with Myatt Snyder because starting in the back and finishing second. I mean, that's a really good finish for that kid, and hopefully he can get a win before the season's out. And next year, I think he should be a one to beat.
He should certainly be a contender next year. Absolutely. Myatt Snyder is someone we have watched closely all year. My happy is going to go to Justin Haley. A fourth place finish puts him directly in that championship 6. And going forward, I have him going to the championship 4. So good job by Justin Haley. My sad goes to Ben Rhodes. What a terrible, terrible, terrible finish to his season. Not that the season's over for him, but his championship hopes are dashed. So that's where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
So we've done the points, we've done the trucks, we've done everything. Let's continue my misery, although this was a happy moment for me. Aric Almirola comes home in the 1000 bulbs.com 500 at Talladega Super Speedway in probably a very exciting finish for many, unless you wear a 41 on your hat. Kurt during this race led 100 plus laps, runs out of gas, and Almirola just blows by.
Yeah.
A lot of great stuff during this race. I didn't see the big one that everybody hopes for during Talladega racing, but we saw a mini big one, if you will. I think we were texting back and forth during this race, and just wasn't a lot of big one. There wasn't a lot of crashes. This was a very clean, very economical, very cautious Talladega race, in my opinion. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I do agree on that as well. Because when I was watching the race on Sunday, I was expecting the big one, and I was expecting a lot of pack racing. But the one that kind of questions me the most is pretty much like I hardly can't even question how all four of the Stewart-Haas racing guys dominated up at the front most of the day, and even during pit stops and on restarts, there were times where one of the Haas cars ended up slowing up because one of them had to let his teammate in, so then that out of the way they would work together, and then next thing you know, they would be back up at the front drafting and so forth. But I would have to say that the Stewart-Haas team pretty much had a game plan going into Talladega, and it was pretty much all right. So you had to all right. So this is what we're gonna do. So even though this is gonna be a playoff race, let's play it smart. Let's draft with each other. Let's stay up at the front near all day, and whatever happens, whoever finishes where, we'll be okay and stuff like that and so on. But the way I kind of picture it, I would have to say that, I think everybody was a little cautious, going into this race comparing to the Talladega race back in the spring, because even if, 12 of the chase drivers or playoff drivers end up getting into a bad finish, then you'd have to go to Kansas, have to do the whole must win, and then you'd be deep in the points. And, and nobody didn't want to have a bad finish and whatsoever. But the really big story that happened after Sunday, and I don't know if you heard this, but so Kurt Busch kind of criticized two things that NASCAR might have miscalled, but then yet again, he has to stick with it and so forth. But number one, so I don't know if you know, I don't know if you knew like the last part of the race, like I think it was like the last restart before overtime. I guess Kurt kind of questioned NASCAR, like why they ran an extra lap, under caution, because at that point of the race, there were some drivers that were conserving fuel and that were on low fuel mileage. And then, of course, the crew chiefs all said, okay, so we're good to go at the, first overtime, but the next overtime, we're done. But so that was one thing that Kurt kind of pointed out, like why they ran like an extra lap. And then boom, green flags waving, everyone's all going and all that. Now, the second one, was, if you notice, there was the 4-car crash, or how many cars that got wrecked. I think it was either like 4 or 5, whatever, that were going into turn one. Kirk kind of said, all right, why didn't NASCAR put out the caution when those guys were crashing into turn one? Now, I saw the replay a few times, and I thought, all right, so if it's 3 cars that have crashed but don't sustain minimal damage, and the field's already on the backstretch, and if there's one car that's like all the way down, like in the infield, like where you can't really see him, like in the turns, I would have just let him race back to the caution. Well, no, let him race back to the flag. If there's like no cars in the way, or if the track's clear, boom. You could race back to the line, whatever, so forth. However, if it was more than 5 cars, or if it was 10 cars, boom, then I would throw the caution after they take the white flag, and you know, then that out of the way, like, everyone's all like, where they're at, like in the race. So I think that was, I know Kurt was upset because, he led 108 laps out of like 193. But then yet again, like, we've seen over the times where, NASCAR's either got it half right or they pretty much got it wrong. But, but if you go back to the truck race on Saturday, Noah Gragson pretty much, crashed coming down the backstretch, and there were three trucks that ended up crashing. So NASCAR had to put out the caution. So it's kind of a different comparison between Saturday and Sunday, where NASCAR said, "All right, well, this is the call that we did, and we're sticking with it." So that's how it is.
You kind of have to go back to when you said race back to the line and race back to the flag, where it was New Hampshire Motor Speedway. I want to say it was 2003, where
Yes.
Dale Jarrett in the number 88 UPS Ford was turned sideways on fire, and guys are blowing by him at a buck 40. Where NASCAR said, when the caution comes out, the field freezes. Everybody just slows down. I agree with that. I agree with that because not only do I have a soft spot in my heart for Dale Jarrett, big ups to Dale Jarrett. Hopefully someday he'll be a guest on the show. But I'm pimping out like nobody's business. But it's a safety issue. Now, going back to Kurt Busch's point, yes, the caution should have flown. And I'm sitting in this room with however many NASCAR fans. Where's the caution? Where is the caution? It never flew. I'm not taking anything away from Aric Almirola and his win, but at the same time, a car is spinning. Where's the caution? We throw a caution for debris on the racetrack. We throw a caution if somebody's too slow. We throw a caution if somebody's picking their nose behind the wheel. NASCAR, I've said it on the Loki Jabroni show. I'll say it here. NASCAR changes the rules as they go along. And it pisses me off. Sorry for the language. But it really does. Because it's hard for me, as a NASCAR fan of 40 years, to explain to somebody this sport, what this sport means to me, and how exciting it is, and how everything is so competitive, from the pit stops to building the engines to building the chassis to building the cars. And then all of a sudden, the cautions are thrown willy-nilly, but other times the cautions aren't thrown. We go back to the Charlotte Roval. There was a spin on when they come out of, I think it was turn 7, turn 8, and they
Yeah.
go on that, what was usually the Charlotte backstretch. Somebody spun. They went toward the inner wall. Caution wasn't thrown. I'm the first guy on top of my bar stool at Mark Azarju at his fantastic man cave, screaming, "Where's the caution?" I'm not looking at the Atlanta Falcons game to my right. I'm looking to the left where the NASCAR race is being played, saying, "Where's the caution?" You cannot just arbitrarily throw a caution when you deem it's okay. The rules have to be the same across the board. I had the same problem with the NFL, which I will cover next week on my other podcast. The football move is BS, and Aaron Rodgers can kiss all the stuff in the bag. That's all I'm going to say. That Monday night game was horse crap. And look at me. Look at me not cussing right now. Just angry. So angry
Yeah.
because you're so right, and Kurt Busch. Why are we arbitrarily throwing cautions when they don't need to be thrown, but yet in the heat of the battle, in the last 2 laps, it was green white checkered at the time. Why are you not throwing the caution now? You cost Kurt Busch a victory.
Right.
My opinion, I'm sticking by it. I'm Chris Burns, and I approve this message.
And not to mention, and it was funny because there was two Stewart-Haas cars that ran out of gas, and then there were two Stewart-Haas cars that ended up making it to the finish.
Oh, and let's be completely honest. Two Stewart-Haas cars that ran out of gas and finished, let me look at my gimmick here, 14th and 28th, and two Stewart-Haas cars who finished 1 and 2 when they were running it was almost like clockwork, 1, 2, 3, 4, nearly the entire race.
And at one point, they were out by like probably 1 or 2 seconds, and then fifth place, was just trying to catch up.
Oh, easily. At one point, the fifth place car was 7 seconds behind.
Right, and that was the one thing I really didn't like either.
I'm not waving the flag for Stewart-Haas. Although I should. I'm a Kevin Harvick fan. We've gone over this a million times, but I'm glad to see Aric Almirola win. But at this point, I'm leaning more toward Kurt Busch. I'm leaning more toward the caution did not fly when it should have. And then we continue on. You run out of gas. Aric Almirola, Clint Bowyer pass you like you're standing still. I'm not sticking up for the teammates of my particular favorite driver. I would have said the same thing if Stenhouse was leading. I would have said the same thing if Kyle Busch were leading. I would have said the same thing leading the race. You can't be arbitrary in how you throw the caution flags.
Yeah.
So before we get too deep into this and I scream my face off, let's just go to the finishing order of the 1000bulbs.com 500. Aric Almirola comes home in first and punches his ticket forward in the playoff scenario. Clint Bowyer finishes second, Ricky Stenhouse third, Denny Hamlin a surprising fourth. There's a guy, while I stop this, who has had some bad luck for the last several weeks. Denny Hamlin was a guy I had early on in the championship 8, but now is outside looking in. He's not a playoff guy. We'll leave it at that. Joey Logano finishes 5th. AJ Allmendinger 6th. Jimmy Johnson, someone wake me up. He's in 7th. Eric Jones 8th. Paul Menard 9th. And Regan Smith 10th. Other notables, Kyle Larson 11th. Kurt Busch 14th. Martin Truex Jr. 23rd. Ryan Newman 25th. Kyle Busch 26th. Brad Keselowski 27th. Kevin Harvick 28th. Ryan Blaney 29th. Matt DiBenedetto, only because I tagged him on Twitter, 30th. Chase Elliott 31st. And Alex Bowman 33rd. Corey, something to think about before we go into points and picks. Only 3 playoff drivers in the top 10. Talladega is the biggest crapshoot of them all. We've said it. We said it last week previewing it. We're saying it this week when we're reviewing it. How crazy was this in deciding the points going forward?
I think it was probably just a bit crazy to think about it, because if you look at it, Martin Truex right now, he's only like 18 points to the good. So I kind of looked at it and I said, all right, so if he finishes second or in the top 5, I think that should give him a next round advantage.
Okay. Well, I just did some math while you were talking, and the difference between Kyle Larson right now and Chase Elliott, who has already punched his ticket, now you have to move Martin Truex down, is 42 points. I think you're right. I'm going to rescind my former statement. This next week at Kansas is going to be a must-win for Kyle Larson.
Yeah.
Just on the math alone. Can't do it.
Yeah.
The kid can't do it unless he wins.
I mean, I do agree.
Okay, so we're going to go to the points, and then we're going to go to the picks. And my bad weekend is going to get even worse. All right, anyway, going into the points, Kevin Harvick leads the points with 31-28. Kyle Busch second with 31-11. Joey Logano third with 31.04. Kurt Busch fourth with 30.95. Aric Almirola is fifth with 30.87. Clint Bowyer is sixth with 30.86. Martin Truex seventh with 30.83. Chase Elliott in eighth with 30.66. But Chase Elliott also has a win, which punches his ticket to the next round. Brad Keselowski is 1 point behind the cutoff at 30.65 in ninth. Ryan Blaney 10th with 30.61. Kyle Larson 11th with 30.41. And Alex Bowman rounds out the top 12 going into next week's elimination race with 30.15. Quick hit. Who's going forward and who's getting eliminated? We already talked about the four. I'm going to move my notebook back just a minute. I had Bowyer, Bowman, Elliott, and Larson. Obviously, Elliott moved forward, so I have to cross him off the list. You had, excuse me, oh, Lord, I'm dying. You had Bowman, Almirola, Kurt Busch, and Clint Bowyer as not moving forward. Obviously, we have to cross Aric Almirola off that list. The one name that pops up on both two names, I'm sorry, Bowman and Bowyer. Do you think Bowman and Bowyer have what it takes to move forward?
I would have to say, I'd have to say Bowman's pretty much, far from out.
If he doesn't win, he's not going in.
Right. I would have to say Bowman's definitely out.
Right. And Bowyer, on the other hand, is, if I'm doing my math right, 23 points. 23 points of the good. So unless he finishes dead last, Clint Bowyer is going forward.
Right.
Okay. So let's go to the picks, and let's continue my misery. Corey had Brad Keselowski as his lock. He finished 27th. Unfortunately, he had Aric Almirola as his sleeper. He finished first, and he had Matt DiBenedetto as his hopeful. He finished 30th. You add that up, you get 58. You divide that by 3. Corey, your finish this week was 19.3. I had Eric Larson. That was a cop that worked with my dad. Son of a gun. I had Kyle Larson as my lock. He finished 11th. I had Chase Elliott as my sleeper. He disappointed me. He finished 31st. And Kevin Harvick, running out of gas, finished 28th. You add that up and you get 70, and I don't even want to go into what that divides into. Corey, you are the Cup Series champion for this week.
Thank you.
So we move on to Kansas. We have the Xfinity race. We have the Cup race. Corey, starting with the Xfinity race, tell us where we can see it, where we can hear it, and how we can enjoy it.
All right. So for Saturday, all right. So going to the Xfinity race on Saturday as I'm trying to pop this up.
Are your 7 computers letting you down right now?
Well, my iPad's trying to let me down at this point, but if I could just give it like a little bit of a boot, then it should be okay. So, all right. Okay. So Saturday, the Xfinity race will be on NBC at 3:00 Eastern Time. Stream it live on the NBC Sports app, and then of course the Motor Racing Network.
The voice of NASCAR
will be there this weekend. So I want to go to the entry list, so I'm probably not going to read everyone's names, but I'm going to give out like a few notables, including the playoff drivers racing this weekend. So for the Xfinity Series, it is now the start of the round of 8, so you will have 3 tracks of Kansas, Texas, and ISM Raceway of Phoenix. So looking at the playoff drivers going forward, you have Cole Custer, Elliott Sadler, Matt Tifft, Justin Allgaier, Tyler Reddick, let's see, Daniel Hemrick, and of course, I think those are the 8, and then also Austin Cindric. So those are the 8 that have made it in, and the 4 drivers that were out were pretty much Ryan Truex, Ryan Reed, Ross Chastain, and of course Brandon Jones. So a few notables on the entry list. You have Shane Lee in the 3 car. You have also Ryan Preece in the 18, Spencer Gallagher in the 23, John Hunter Nemechek in the 42, Jeremy Clements in the 51, and Ty Majeski in the 60. And, of course, last but not least, we have Chase Briscoe in the 98.
Okay. So, I'm going to let you start this week.
Okay.
Kansas, Xfinity, lock, and sleeper.
All right. So my lock for this weekend, very easy, very simple. It's definitely got to be Christopher Bell because he's going to be the one guy that's going to be tough to beat, especially on the mile and a halves. And essentially with this next round, I think Bell has a 100% chance of making it into the championship more than any other driver in between. So he's going to be my lock for this week. And then my sleeper, as much as I picked him before, I'm going to go with the 21 of Daniel Hemrick. I really, really want to see this team get a win sometime soon. They're close on winning a race, but they just haven't really closed the deal as of so far this year. But they just really need a win and pretty much to get themselves into the championship four.
Well, I'm going to agree with you on the lock. I went with Christopher Bell as well. But on the sleeper, I have Elliott Sadler. Only because, this guy is in the twilight of his career. And, early in the season, if you go back to our previous episodes, I thought Elliott Sadler had a fantastic chance to be the champion this year. What I did not see was Christopher Bell coming out and just bludgeoning the field.
Right.
So Elliott Sadler on the way out, and I don't know if he's done this year. I don't know if he's going to be done next year. I don't know if it's going to be 2020 before we sing the swan song of Elliott Sadler. He needs something. He needs something to say, success. He's a very successful driver.
Yeah.
He's just one of those guys that you can't root against. I love Elliott Sadler. I do. So that's why he's my sleeper in Kansas this weekend. And you can hear it all on MRN, the voice of NASCAR.
Yes.
Okay, so now we go forward. Sunday, Cup Series Jones. Tell us about it.
All right, so Sunday, the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series, the elimination race at the round of 12 begins 2:30 Eastern Time on NBC. And then, of course, NBC Sports app, free to download. And then, of course, the Motor Racing Network.
The voice of NASCAR.
Will also be there this weekend as well.
Okay. So you led off last time. I'm going to lead off this time. My lock going back to Kansas earlier in the year is going to be Kevin Harvick. It's not a homer pick. It's a smart pick. Kevin Harvick put on a clinic once again at Kansas like he did in Atlanta, like he did in Vegas, like he did in all these races. That's my lock. My sleeper is the guy that every single time is right behind him going forward. And I told you guys throughout the playoffs, I'm playoff Jones when it comes to picks. I'm picking Kyle Busch. Yes, it hurts my feelings, but I'm picking Kyle Busch as my sleeper because wherever you see Harvick, the 18's not far behind.
Right.
My hopeful, and I say this with all the love I have in my heart for that beautiful woman that is upstairs right now, giving up her time and saying, Chris, why do you have to do this NASCAR gimmick every single Wednesday? I'm picking her driver as my hopeful. Kyle Larson is my hopeful. If for nothing else, then my woman will be happy.
Okay, so my lock for this weekend, I'm gonna have to go with Martin Truex Jr. as much as Chelsea's favorite driver is.
Oh God! Oh, this early?
Yes.
Why don't you mention my daughter while you're at it? She loves Truex too.
Yes, and also your daughter's favorite driver. But I'm just looking at Martin Truex Jr. this year, and I said, okay, so he's 18 points above the cutoff.
Yes.
And you go back to the spring race, he almost won if he had had a better strategy. And then, of course, Harvick passes him with 2 laps to go. But I just look at Martin Truex Jr., and just remember, last year the 78 team dominated the mile and a halves. And I really think, this team I really think is going to be a one to watch, especially going into the next round as well, if, Truex has a solid day whatsoever. But he is going to be my lock for this weekend. My sleeper, I am going to have to go with Ryan Blaney. As much as, he's having Wrangler on the car this weekend, even though it's not in the yellow and blue paint scheme, but that doesn't matter. This was a kid that, he ran well in the Cup race back in the spring. He could have had a really good finish or a win if he hadn't have got caught up in a wreck right near the end. But I just look at Ryan Blaney and, I think he's going to be the sleeper team in this playoffs that could possibly make the championship four, no question about it. And then, of course, my hopeful, I'm going to have to go with Clint Boyer not because it's his home track in Kansas, but I really want to see this team run better. If they're going to be a championship contender between now and then the next coming weeks. And let's not to mention, next week they're going to Martinsville, which of course, Boyer won there back in the spring. So you look at the next round, I would say, Boyer's got a good shot at making the championship four because, he knows how to run Martinsville and he knows how to run ISM. So he's one of those guys that runs pretty good when it comes to the short tracks.
Great call on Boyer, by the way. And just to go back to Blaney, when I look at the points, Blaney's only 22 points to the bad when you consider Chase Elliott sitting in eighth, has a win, he moves up. You go to Martin Truex Jr., 30-83, and Ryan Blaney is 30-61, 22 points. A bad race by Martin Truex Jr., no offense to the lovely and talented Chelsea Gashaka-Shaka-Shaka-Shaka-ness, but also, no offense to my daughter, Emma, love you, kid. A bad race by Martin Truex Jr. puts Blaney into the playoffs. So a great pick. I think maybe when I'm looking at your picks, you might be poisoning your own well, kid. I'm just throwing that out there. If you want all these young talent, and look, I'm not taking away from Harvick or Busch, Kyle, that is, or anybody else in that. Well, actually, when I'm looking at the top eight, Truex, Busch, Harvick, the only four. Kurt Busch, champions. 4 champions in the top 8. Former champions. You want the young guys to come up. You want the young guys to, in this round, it's been young guy Jones all day long. You have Elliott. You have Almirola. But I don't know, man. I'm looking at your picks. Not that I want you to change them, but you're kind of poisoning your own well. That's my opinion. I'm sticking to it. What the heck are you doing this? These people deserve better.
Right.
And shave your beard.
Well, I'm just getting ready for No Shave November the way it looks as
Oh, my God. It's like no shave every month for you, actually. Yeah. Except for when you go to prison, you shave.
Right.
Quick hit before I ask you what you're going to pimp out. Talking to a lot of people in this area. I'm in Connecticut. You're in Massachusetts. This is heard all around the country and hopefully in some cases around the world. A lot of people are excited about Ryan Preece joining that 47 team next year. Does Ryan Preece, we're looking kind of, it's October now, October, November, December, January, February, 4 months away from his actual 1,000% Cup debut. Can you see Ryan Preece in the top 20 in points next season, 2019?
I would probably say yes.
I'd agree with you. He's got the talent. He's got the equipment underneath him. This could happen. That 47 team is no joke. Let's go back. Let me look at the finishing order. AJ Allmendinger, who runs that car, didn't do too bad. 6th place.
Right.
On a big track like Talladega, you need speed, you need chassis, you need engine, you need everything. So, Ryan Preece, my opinion, he may not make the top 16, but he's certainly a top 20 driver next season in his rookie campaign.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that myself. And, like I said before, JTG Doherty, they're a consistent team. And I think Preece, I think he could get it done now. I don't expect him to win right away, but I'm going to look in the first 5 races of next season to see how this kid can do.
I think he gets a win next season. I won't say when. I won't say in the first 5, first 10, first 20. I think before we go to Homestead in 2019, Ryan Preece in the 47 wins the Cup race.
Okay, I agree.
And I'm buying the shirt. I am so buying the shirt. I ain't going to lie. So, Corey, it's time for you now to pimp, plug, or otherwise pilfer these people with what you have to tell them.
Okay, so keep following us on the C&J Speedway Review. We are at Facebook, so don't forget to hit the like, and you'll get a lot of news and everything else that goes with it. Continue to follow us on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe, hit the bell, and then once you do all that, then you'll get notifications when we go live, when we go this and that, and so forth. Twitter, we are at CJ_Speedway, and then Instagram, we are at CJ Speedway. So I don't know about you guys, but that was kind of my bad on the whole intro, and I didn't know about the whole copyright laws and stuff, and again, not to disrespect Leonard Skinner and not to disrespect your fans, but that is, and literally, I'm going to say this again, that is probably my all-time favorite song, when it comes to Talladega, and literally, I could have that song on repeat, and I can still say it's one of my all-time favorites. That's how it is, and so forth. But to close this one out, so Saturday I am going go-karting, yes, the Rowdy Burns myself is going to be racing this weekend at K1 Speed for the Saturday night shootout, and there's going to be a couple of people that have been trash talking me with the last couple of weeks. CJ and Isaiah, I know who you are, so you're probably the only one so far. But so I'm going to be at K1 Speed on Saturday, and then I'm also going to be going down to Foxwoods December 1st. And also, Thanksgiving week, while I'm going to be visiting my folks down in Pennsylvania, my grandparents, that is. So there's also a possibility I might be doing some go-karting down there at Speed Raceway in Horsham, Pennsylvania. It's a suburb that's outside of Philadelphia, whatever it is, and so forth. So this is kind of my only goal, I think, for I'd probably say next year. You take me to any go-karting place around the country or international, whatever it is, and you just never know. I could pretty much win almost anywhere.
All right, here's what I'm going to say to you, because I love you. You're my friend.
All right. Yes.
You're my partner. You're my partner in NASCAR crime. Looking forward to seeing you first week in December at Foxwoods at the K1 track. I'm looking forward to you winning.
Yes.
That weekend on the K1 track. But at some point, Corey, you're gonna have to face your demons. You stole my last name. You go out there and you say Rowdy Burns. Well, Chris Burns wants to say that in the event you want to step up to the plate and swing for the fences, we'll get in that car and we'll race, and we'll have Eddie or Mike or whomever from the Loki and Jabroni show, the Focus Digital Network. We'll film it. We'll have a good time. Win or lose, I'm going to shake your hand. It's all good.
I'm not afraid to race anybody, so all I can do is
That's what I love to hear. That's what I love to hear.
When I'm out on that racetrack, when I strap on the helmet and I have the gloves on and I got the neck brace and everything, I'm just good to go. And you race me clean, I'll race you clean. But if you end up, tapping me the wrong way or whatever it is, I'm not afraid to show that back to you. And there has been a couple times where, and actually I got to tell you this one story. So my good friend Mark, I guess him and his friend Blake or whatever it is. So they went up to NH1 Motorplex about a couple weeks ago, and this was during a bachelor party and so forth. I think I might have told you the story, but I guess either Mark's friend or Blake's friend, they ended up getting banned from the NH1 place permanently because...
I'm sorry, banned?
Yeah.
You got to do some stupid stuff to get banned from a go-kart place.
Because Blake's friend pretty much thought, go-karts is basically like bumper cars where we'll just smash into each other. So I told my friend Mark this. I said, if you would have put me on the same track with him, and if he ended up doing the same stuff to me, I would have done the same stuff back to him because I would not take that for an answer. And that just goes to show you that 51 team just doesn't really like to play rough, and and if you play it safe with me, I'll play it safe back to you. But yeah, so that's what Mark ended up telling me that one time. I thought it was crazy enough to say the least.
Let me ask you a dumb question because
All
I've
right.
never done one. I know these K1 places are popping up everywhere. These
Yes.
high speed go kart places are popping up everywhere. Right down the street from my house is one. Um, do they allow you like the beginning caution laps to get a feel for the track, or do you just go?
Well, here's the thing. So there's actually not a K1 place in Connecticut just yet. So there's actually two places in Connecticut called NASCAR, which is like
Yes,
further up north in Connecticut, and then the one that they just built in Foxwoods, that's
right down the
Monza
street from my
Indoor.
house.
There you go. So whenever I go to K1, so like what you do is like you'll get like a slow warm up, so then that out of the way, like you get like a feel of the car. So basically a K1, like you'll have one guy that controls the car by like a remote control. So he's the one that controls it. So he's the one that controls it, like either going fast or slow or whatever it is and so forth. Then, you get a little bit up to speed, feeling like, okay, so once they go green, game on. And then once the green flag waves and he turns it on, boom, that's when you end up going fast.
Okay, I just want to know what I'm getting into when I whip your butt going forward.
There is no way you're
Five.
going to whip my butt.
Oh, brother
There is
man.
no way. Hey, there's no way. I can tell you that right now.
Okay, I'll buy it. I'm not a guy who wants to get into a chest puffing contest, but I love you, kid. But when it gets out on the track, you give
I
me a
love
feel
you
for the.
too.
Give me 2 laps on a track. I'll figure it out, and I'm gonna whip your butt. It's all good, and we'll do it live for all of you out there. What I have to pimp is the Loki and Jabroni Show, as always, the flagship of the Focus Digital Network. Great things coming up. We have a couple great interviews that I can't announce because they're not confirmed, but one is the son of a legendary professional wrestler. The other is a legendary, in my opinion, maybe not in everybody else's opinion, wide receiver from the NFL who in late December, early January is going to come on the show and talk about the season that was and the playoffs that are going to be. And believe me when I tell you, in the emails that he's got a lot to say about the Patriots. I know a lot of people that listen to this show are Northeast like we are. If you're a Jets fan, if you're a Bills fan, if you're a Patriots fan, if you're a Dolphins fan, this gentleman has a lot to say. And I don't take it lightly because he played the game. Although he played in the NFC South, at the time it was the NFC West. Doesn't matter. Schnibbitsfirm.com. It's an NFL wide receiver, guys, and he's going to come on and tell you what you saw for those 16 games. Um, Corey, what the heck with the Patriots and the Chiefs this past week?
Man, all I can just tell you is that was a nail biter on Sunday night, but luckily we ended up edging them out for a field goal. And I mean, I tell you one thing, like I knew the Chiefs were going to be tough, and I knew it was going to be a close game. But I said at the end, all right, if we could win this game by about a field goal, I'd be okay with it.
Well, I kind of had a similar situation. I was glad to get a win. Makes it look again. Look at my hat. I'm used to losing in football. It's all good, guys. But you know what's great? Hockey season. And the Bruins look hot this year. I
Yeah.
am so excited about Bruins hockey this year. I wore my 2011 championship hat the other day. People were looking like, yeah, this is our year. And you know what? I can't argue. It's a great season. But this is a racing podcast. What I want to say to you guys is this weekend is going to be fantastic. It's elimination weekend on the Cup Series. The Xfinity Series is going forward. This is going to be so much fun. If you miss it, guess what? You missed it. I
Yeah.
can't tell you enough. Get in front of a TV or get on your radio and listen to MRN.
The
The
voice of
voice of
NASCAR.
NASCAR. See, Corey, you did that like it was your job. I love it.
Thank you.
Get in front of those TVs. Get behind those radios. Listen to this week's race because this is going to be history in the making. This is one of the closest races ever for an elimination ever in the history of NASCAR. Going forward to the next round, this is going to be epic. And by the way, if I could throw a special shout out before we go dark, hey, Captain Car Wash, you're wrong. Love you.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, well, Chris did it. He's always the guy that stirs the pot. Anyway, he's Corey. I'm Chris. He's the C. I'm the J, as in jabroni. This is the C&J Speedway review. Guys, thank you so much for listening every single week. Tell your friends. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Click the bell. Go to Anchor FM. Find us on audio only. If you can't be here on Wednesday night, find us wherever you can find us. We love you. We love racing. And Corey, I almost like you. And by the way, Chelsea, he loves you.
Yes, I love you.
You know she's watching.
Yeah, she is.
Right
She's watching. She's watching, and she knows, and she knows the fact I love her.
She's our number one fan. Guys, thank you so much. And Corey's gonna give those two famous words that lead us out every single week. Corey, say it.
Good night.